Welcome to the Dome, David. Thanks for
Going
being
on?
here. A lot's going on. You stepped in here at a very historic moment in the world of Bitcoin, at least, and that is part of the context how we met. You and your wife came out here last year to help me build one of the domes, which I'm very grateful for. And it became obvious very early on that you're really into Bitcoin, and my involvement with Noster, which is kind of adjacent to Bitcoin, grew over the last year, and that kind of reconnected us to where we have an in-person meetup coming up in a few weeks.
Yeah, I'm super excited about that. I feel like I'm starting to learn this lesson for myself, and I'm hoping to others start to learn that like we using these tools locally, I think is key for us getting to a different place. So doing a local meetup in a freedom-minded place seems like a good, yeah, seems like we met for a reason, and we've been talking a lot about like random timing. That's like been pretty perfect, and a lot's happened really quickly in the last like couple weeks. It's been kind of wild.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I just went out to your place a week ago, and so much has changed. A lot of people don't even know these things are happening, but this is like a seismic event happened in the world of Bitcoin yesterday, which is looking like it's going to result in an actual chain split, which will mean that what was Bitcoin will now become two different coins. So for all the people watching, many of whom might not know anything anything about Bitcoin,
hmm
can you tell us what's happening and give us some context?
Yeah, so I'm not a super technical Bitcoin user, but I do run a node. I care a lot about the network. I do mining off grid. So I interact with Bitcoin a lot, and I would say I have a lot of faith in it, but I really come at it from the perspective of just a midwit pleb, just like navigating by what makes sense to me as far as Bitcoin staying money. And there's a lot of different narratives. Like, depending on who you ask, there's a different story of why Core is what it is right now and why VIP 110 exists. And I'm not here to tell anyone else their version. But in my version, I've been mining with Ocean for a while. I've noticed what Luke has done. I've been around for long enough to remember like the last split. And it's always felt pretty clear to me that I want the version of Bitcoin that's going to serve as money. And when I say that, I don't mean store of value like number go up technology. I mean like something that's useful for us to use to interact on Noster and everything that comes from that and in real life. And so to me, from my perspective, there's been an attack on Bitcoin through the institution of Core, a well-funded attack. Like, to me, it's very obvious. It's not like a mystery. And the fact that things went the way they did, it's not like, oh, I guessed wrong. It's like, oh, I was wrong about how centralized Bitcoin already
It's worse than you
is.
thought.
It's worse than I thought. Like, because a lot's changed, since the last split. Like, mining has scaled up a lot. Things have changed. Bitcoin is more mainstream. And so, yeah, it makes sense that there could be a different result. And it was kind of a bummer, but I feel like now there's potential for a lot of opportunities to take, a movement, because there's a lot of people that were running the nodes. I haven't been looking closely lately. I've been kind of putting the blinders on and just absorbing. But yeah, there's a lot of people running those nodes that have been very outspoken about wanting to keep Bitcoin money.
Yeah, and let me just jump in because again, a lot of people might not know anything about Bitcoin listening to this. And from my perspective, there's three main stakeholder groups in Bitcoin. One of them is the developers, because Bitcoin ultimately is just code running on a computer somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So the developers are the ones actually writing and making code changes. Another group is the miners, who are, I guess that gets technical, but they're basically they're the ones processing transactions essentially and getting rewards for that. The other group are the node operators, which I have a node running in the other room right here. And these are just regular people, or miners, I guess, are also running nodes, but it could just be regular people running the Bitcoin software on a computer at their home. And that's actually what makes the network decentralized, because Bitcoin is running on tens of thousands of computers all over the world that anybody can run. And so it's very hard to shut down. So just to add some context, and you mentioned like Bitcoin Core, and so that's trying to figure out how to approach this in a way that like people can understand the story, I guess, of what's happening here.
Yeah.
Bitcoin is vulnerable if any one of those three stakeholders becomes corrupted or overtaken by a central force. And in this case, from a certain perspective, again, the developers were the ones who became corrupted. And there's a centralized team of developers, which is known as Bitcoin Core, which pushed through a very controversial code change. Should we maybe start there? And do you want to talk about what that code change was and why it's controversial?
Yeah. For me, I started to really notice when it's kind of a blur now. It's kind of crazy how much has happened in a year or whatever, but it started to feel like a big deal with Core V30 because that's when it started to feel like there was an active attempt to mess up Bitcoin because they made a big change as far as blowing open the op return exponentially, way bigger. It really changed it. It's a big change, and and Bitcoin has been away for a long time for a reason. And this was whoa, that stands out, and I'm not super technical, but I started paying attention more. I was already interested in Ocean because it makes sense to me that mining should be more decentralized. And this thing unfolding the way it has indicated that it's way too centralized because a lot of us think Bitcoin didn't do what we kind of hoped it would do.
Yeah. And again, so these node operators, they can choose what version of Bitcoin they're running. So when we say core, that's a specific version of Bitcoin, which I guess is considered the official version. And in version 30, when you say op return, there's a field in every Bitcoin transaction that allows for some arbitrary data to be put in. Yeah. And that was increased from 83 bytes to 300 kilobytes or something.
Or maybe it's 100 kilobytes. I don't know. It's the kind of stuff I don't commit to memory because I'm usually paying attention to the people more than the technicals, but yes.
But essentially,
it was a big increase.
There was a change put in, which I looked at the pull request on GitHub, and I mean, it seemed to be over. Most people didn't want that code change to happen.
Right.
If you go look at the pull request, and it basically increased the amount of arbitrary data that can go into a block, which could be used for JPEGs or anything. So do you maybe want to talk about, again, this is all just our perspectives, but why did that happen, and why is that controversial, or why didn't people like it?
Yeah. So the idea, to me, I'm just going to be saying what a lot of other people have said in my own words. I think Bitcoin has such a big potential to shake things up that there are those who see that and want to do everything they can to prevent that. And I think it can look a lot of different ways, and I just think that's one of the latest things. I even think the cold card stuff is I think there's some reason why that happened. I don't think it's randomness. I don't think it's just a bug or an oversight. I think there was some calculation on some level by somebody, but I don't know who. Yep. Same thing with this. It's I'm not saying all core developers are bad, but it happens all the time in fiat world where the overarching energy of it, the intentions, the grand scheme is a dark one, and people maybe are feeding into that's just my point of view. To me, that's a dark path for Bitcoin. To me, when we open it up to that stuff, it's the slippery slope. And, and a lot of people that kind of see it the way I do imagine that they're going to try to remove a cap on it. And it'll just become a tool to absorb the fiat crash, some of that mess. And to me, as long as we're just valuing it like an equity, a thing that you trade on or you bet on, we're not doing it.
Yeah, and I think we should talk about Bitcoin as an investment versus Bitcoin as a peer-to-peer currency, which is really it. I mean, it is intended as an inflation hedge, I would say, but it should be used as a peer-to-peer currency, which I would say is used almost zero today. I'm sure some people are using it, but I guess just talking about this historic event that happened yesterday and the timeline of events. So this controversial code change happened, which the main argument as I see it is that Bitcoin should be money. It shouldn't become bloated. It shouldn't have all these other scripts running or JPEGs or any data that could be put in there. Because ultimately, my node downloads all information that's in every transaction. So people are saying this isn't made for an NFT or something. It's purely supposed to be money and Bitcoin transferring from one address to another. So I shouldn't have to store your monkey JPEG or something. So that's why people are very, very against it. And the thing about Bitcoin is nobody's in charge. Mm-hmm. So who ultimately decides whether that goes or not? So let's talk about so the code change happened, and then can you talk about like BIP 110 and basically a resistance to that code change in BIP 110 and kind of how that came about?
Yeah, and I'll just explain it the best I can, with my moderate knowledge on the stuff. To me, BIP 110 is like a immune response to what happened. Like a lot of people who are serious about Bitcoin as money, which I think are a small group within a small group within a small group. People know Bitcoin in the crypto world, and then if you're in a little deeper, you know why it's kind of extra valuable, but you still might just store it as you might Michael Saylor it. I think Bitcoin has a lot of levels to it, and to me, people that are actually running nodes and were considering BIP 110 are like the people who are really paying attention and who really care about Bitcoin being money. Doesn't mean they're right or wrong. I just feel like their heart is in this. And so BIP 110 is basically, I see it as kind of rolling things back. Like it was tightening the rule set. It was taking things back to before, they expanded the op return, and then other changes that I'm not going to really talk about because I'm not technically, I just kind of noticed the trends. And yeah, I saw it as just a response and saying, hey, this is what we want Bitcoin to be. And then everything I heard listening to people talk about it in a game theoretical sense, it seemed like there was a calm understanding that nodes run the network, and I believe that. I wanted Bitcoin to be run by the nodes. To me, like that's key to it being really what it is. And what played out, it seems to indicate that it's not run by the nodes because there was a vocal minority actually pushing a thing. And then historically, when that happens in Bitcoin, that thing tends to happen, at least based on what I've observed. And I'm sure there's a lot of perspectives on that. Like there's Bitcoin's a tough thing to wrap our heads around. But yeah, so I just understand it as like a correction. I saw it as like an update that was necessary, like cleaning our lawn or spring cleaning for Bitcoin. And I kind of really just had a lot of faith that it would just get pushed through because the miners would be incentivized to just, oh, it's fine, just flip the bit. Didn't go that way, and now
Right.
it's, yeah.
I guess again to summarize, when we say BIP 110, BIP stands for Bitcoin Improvement Proposal, and so like when Bitcoin first came out, it was written by this anonymous person, Satoshi, and since then there's been a lot of updates and changes, and I guess the way it goes is they're written out as proposals in these Bitcoin improvement proposals. So this one specifically was addressing this data limit increase, and the actual proposal was just to undo that for a 1-year period, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
So at some point, again, you can run whatever version of Bitcoin you want, and somebody has created a version of Bitcoin that implements BIP 110, right, which is called Bitcoin Knots. So me as a node operator, I can run Bitcoin Core 30 with the change. I can run Bitcoin Knots, or I'm actually still running Bitcoin 29.
Yeah.
So again, when I say this was a popular movement, can you talk about, you were kind of involved with this from the get-go. I really didn't even know it was happening.
Yeah.
Can you talk about how many people were actually running BIP 110 and what has that movement looked like for you since being involved in it?
Yeah, well, I got inspired to make a video I had a thing happen on my property and solar panels got blown around, and I was like, literally, I was at my wit's end with like Bitcoin, and I'm just like, what is the universe trying to tell me? And at the same time, things were getting really like fiery about this discussion. And so I made a video that was kind of talking about my panels and then talking about that. And then it caused me, I felt like I got kind of sucked into the world more and like I wanted to be more vocal about it because it didn't seem like there was a lot of people speaking up for the movement of Bitcoin as money. And the thing I kept noticing was like the comment sections. That's why I feel like it's real because like no matter who was talking about it, pro or for it, whatever perspective, the comments are like, I'm running BIP 110. Like lots of individuals with unique comments and perspectives, and it just felt like the pleb movement. To me, it filled me up with like hope that like, oh, this is how we prove that Bitcoin is what we wanted it to be. The nodes control Bitcoin. We're going to tell the miners what to do and they're going to listen. Right. And then so to have that not play out that way, it's like, well, yeah, I'm wrong, but also it's just like Bitcoin isn't functioning the way that I want it to.
Hmm.
And I think there's going to be a better way. I like to be an optimistic and think like, well, this didn't go this way, but that doesn't mean, something great could come from it.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, things happen. It might seem really bad at first, but we don't know what it's going to lead to. So,
Yeah.
the jury's still out, I would say. As far as this BIP 110 movement goes, my understanding is that about 15 or 20% of the total nodes were running that as of yesterday, which equated to like 15 or 20,000 nodes, I guess,
Yeah.
throughout the world, were the numbers that I saw. So it's a sizable minority. It's still a minority.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess let's talk about what happened yesterday, because this was kind of the make or break moment where, again, it kind of gets technical as far as like the interplay between the nodes and the miners. But yesterday, the miners had to start signaling their support for BIP 110, or else basically that would die. And that's what happened. But do you want to talk about what went down yesterday from your perspective?
Yeah, I was trying to be a little unattached. I wasn't like, there's a version of me that's like a hyper obsessed with something. I was trying to be present with other stuff happening in my life. I checked in on a website or two a couple times as I was getting closer, and then I kind of observed the first couple blocks, so I kind of was watching. For me, it was disheartening because, I just wanted to see a peaceful transition to a better version of Bitcoin. But I didn't want to get too wrapped up in that point of view because, like we said, it's like, there could be another thing that's going to happen that I'm not aware of. And maybe this Bitcoin is just, it's a little bit beyond repair or whatever. Like, I'm okay with there being a different version that we just utilize the same tools and do what we've been doing. And it's just, it isn't listed, and it's not the one that MicroStrategy's trading and selling for shitcoin. Like, it would be cool if it was its own thing, So I don't see it as like death yet, because a lot could happen in the next month or whatever. Like, I think we should keep the chain going. I'm going to keep mining on it because for me, I invested into mining and stuff because my heart was in it, not because I had like this plan of making a bunch of money. It was like, oh, I just think it's so cool to turn sunlight into sats at whatever cost. So I just kind of wanted to have that project, and now I'm like, well, I don't know if I care about that Bitcoin anymore. So I'm down to switch up the ride, like whatever that means. If we do it, change the proof of work, if there's a fork and a new coin, I think it would be cool if we weren't listed on an exchange, and just focused on figuring out markets between ourselves. But yeah, I don't know. It was like, so it was a lot of emotions for me. And it makes a lot of sense. I was humbled, like often I am humbled, because I was hopeful, but I was being a little bit blindly hopeful, because part of me was kind of like, yeah, they might.
What was the case that I guess the BIP 110 would like win the day? Because again, if they're only running 20% of the nodes, why did the supporters think that they would win the consensus of the whole ecosystem?
To me, the main argument was like miners are focused on mining blocks, and it seemed like there was a one-way attack vector. Like, we could take blocks from them, but they can't take blocks from us. And so even with just having roughnecks and then solo miners like myself, like we're getting like there were some blocks happening on BIP 110. So my belief was like, oh, miners aren't going to want to have to deal with the fork. They'll just, and that's the narrative that was kind of going between people. But we also all said, like, I don't really know. But this would be like ideally, because then it's like a smooth transition. We just adopt the changes. Bitcoin is less of a garbage dump from our perspective, right?
Because in theory now, say the 20% forks off, which nobody knows at this point what's going to happen. The miners make their money from Bitcoin transaction fees. Mm-hmm. So in theory, they could be losing out on 20% of transactions going forward. If it just broad math, that's right. Might not be exact, but let's say 20% of transactions now are happening on some different cryptocurrency. Yeah, that miners are missing out on that. So that's, I guess, from my understanding, why the BIP 110 supporters thought that the miners would start they had to flag their support for BIP 110. And if that had happened, I guess BIP 110 would have kind of become like de facto Bitcoin Core, like that. It would have.
Yeah, I think eventually Bitcoin Core would have just been kind of irrelevant because they're not working with the right rules.
The miners would not have been recognizing, I guess, the op return limit increase.
They would have gone along with the new tighter rule
So
set.
even though the code is running on nodes running Bitcoin Core 30, which again, this is getting technical, even though that code might be running on nodes, the miners wouldn't be recognizing transactions that were using that increased limit, right?
I think that's how it works, yeah.
I was a little fuzzy on that, but that's my understanding.
Yeah.
So I guess let's talk about the miners a little bit, because again, each of these stakeholders has vulnerabilities in Bitcoin, and really it comes down to decentralization is the strength of Bitcoin. If there's only 5 people running nodes, then they can all run software that would just award themselves all the coins or something.
Right.
With the miners, it's the same thing. If somebody gains more than 50% of the mining power, which, again, getting technical for people who don't know about Bitcoin, miners are basically making guesses at a random number every second. So the mining power is measured in guesses per second at that number. And if somebody, so that's a known number. And if somebody has more than 50% of that, they could in theory control the network, and they can mine blocks according to whatever code version they want, the miners. Mm-hmm. And at that point, the node users become irrelevant.
Yeah.
And the reality right now is the mining pools are dominated by these huge industrial size miners with warehouses full of Bitcoin miners. And there's about 4 or 5 of on some podcasts, they said like among 3 of them, they have like 70% of the mining power or something.
Yeah.
So when the activation time came yesterday, I mean, BIP 110 failed. The miners continued mining. They didn't signal their support for BIP 110, which means that essentially BIP 110 failed. Bitcoin Core is still the de facto core, and the 20% of people running nodes with Bitcoin Knots or BIP 110, they're essentially running a dead chain at this point in the eyes of Bitcoin Core.
Yeah.
Did I summarize that correctly?
I mean, I would say so. I don't think it has to be that way. I think there's a lot of possibilities still. And I don't think anything has to be rushed. I think even just a few people mining it and running nodes, like it literally could still just exist on my property.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you never know what could happen. Like, what if, something gets put on that other chain and suddenly it's illegal? You know what I mean? There's still a lot of things that could come out of this, and it could be really messy. Maybe it'll never be relevant any kind of way, and it's already kind of died. I don't know. But I feel like people who care about Bitcoin as money are going to ask all these questions, and are going to talk about it and think like, all right, if we were going to do a proof of work change, what would it look like? And I'm down to be part of that. Because in my point of view, I'd rather take a roll of dice on the underdog, the new thing that feels more cypherpunk to me. That feels like it was, has the right intentions behind it.
I guess from an incentives perspective, taking out any collusion or conspiring or something, the argument could be made that miners acted against their own interest yesterday because they are cutting 20% of node operators out of their network that they're recognizing. They reduced their potential transaction fee pool by not signaling for BIP 110, right? At least from some perspective.
Yeah, I guess so. It's it's hard for me to think through the dynamics of all what's happening with the mining on the BIP 110 chain, and right now those nodes probably aren't they probably don't mean a lot, but I think the one point I just want to make quickly, I think that most of the miners right now are fiat driven, and they're going to make decisions based on that. Mm-hmm. Right. And I think that maybe wasn't as true back in 2017. Maybe more of the miners were like in it to win it. Like, that's just a guess. I just feel like it's become more centralized for a reason. And also a new thing is like the FPPS, like the pay per share. Do you aware of that? Like,
Yeah.
so that was kind of coming out right before I switched to Ocean, where it's like, instead of giving you your actual shares, what you mine, you got paid a little earlier, but it's like based on a calculation they do. So it's like really they're becoming a middleman, and they're running some little magical thing on their number, probably taking a little bit more than you realize. And to me, that's not, so that's how I kind of was like, oh, that doesn't sound right. And I went and started mining with Ocean, and it took a little longer to get rewards and stuff, but I felt like the rewards were actually more. Um, and yeah, I don't know. I'm blabbing. I don't remember what the original.
Well, I guess I was kind of trying to hopefully give people an understanding of what happened yesterday and the context. A lot of this won't make sense, again, because it's terminology that took me a lot of time to understand. But
Yeah.
how it appears to me is that the Bitcoin is right now dominated by big money people. There's a lot of money behind the miners. A lot of them are publicly traded companies. The exchanges are big money. They're publicly traded companies. And what people were speculating is, the exchanges didn't want BIP 110 to go through. And the miners favored what the exchanges wanted instead of, again, this. It is a 20% minority, but there are some technicalities there with the soft fork. Like, a lot of transactions still would have been valid. But it looks like big money won the day over again, plebs, I guess is the term we use for just regular people. We don't have we're talking here, but we don't have a platform. We're not a billionaire, on CNBC every day.
Right.
Those,
Yeah, definitely. I think so.
Yeah. So those people appear to have won I won't say win
They
or
won the
lost.
battle.
They control it. They are in control of Bitcoin right now.
Yeah.
So the question now, that brings us up to the present moment, and these discussions are happening in real time right now. Bitcoin, again, from my view, people will disagree with this. Bitcoin is captured by big money interest, and this gets into a whole number of ways we could take it. But like, what you've been preaching is, they're thinking of Bitcoin in terms of dollars, which is antithetical to the whole reason why it exists. If you're a real Bitcoiner, you believe the dollar is going to go to hyperinflation one day.
Yeah.
So why are you looking at it as an investment? Why would you want to trade it for dollars, which from the Bitcoiner world point of view is worthless? Which I want to talk about. I guess the question is, what do the 20% of node operators do now? The 20% of people who are operating BIP 110, who believe strongly in it enough to run Bitcoin knots, didn't have their voice heard yesterday. We're sitting here, what do we do now? What do they do now?
Yeah.
And this is totally open. So, what do you think?
Yeah, so I'll say I'm grateful right now that I'm not holding a bunch of Bitcoin, because I don't have to think too hard about what was. I'm not like, there's no reason for me to be attached to like the old way of doing anything. Like, I am totally open to, whatever might come, and I'm going to look to others that are more technically advanced and coming up with some of these actual implementations of ideas. But I would hope there's like a conversation within the community, and then the people that represent that community that do that will do the work to put forward what we feel like is a way to move forward in terms of is there something to salvage here? Can we work with what's here? Because I feel like there's a movement tied to that.
Right.
Whatever you want to call the BIP 110 split or whatever, there's a bunch of node runners. It's like we have their attention. Okay, guys, we still agree Bitcoin should be money. What can we do here? And I think we could act on our own. We don't have to ask permission. And the plan should have nothing to do with how, in my view, how do we get it on exchanges? How do we make it legit Bitcoin? It's like, let them have legit Bitcoin. We can have little crappy Bitcoin. It doesn't matter. All we need are some node runners, some miners. And I don't know the technicalities of how we get out of the situation where the chain is stalled because the difficulty is up here and we have the hash rate that's down here. I don't know how that works, but I imagine there's some way to move through that. And I don't know, I would say like trim as much fat as we can, and like the voices that are like saying, hey, let's fix this, and like keeping, like, I think less is more in this case. And so a version of Bitcoin that still worked with And I don't know, maybe I'm asking for too much, but like that still works with Lightning and all
Right.
these other, and we could just have alternate versions of Nostr, you know.
Yeah.
I don't see why we still can't have our network and peer-to-peer currency and not have it pegged to the dollar or be too concerned about maybe a couple fringe people trading, you know. It would be cool if people just kept it and traded it,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know, which has always been the Bitcoin dream,
That's
but it's
the
like, how do we get there?
exactly.
And now I feel like there's so much, just based on what you know, like what you said earlier, it's like, it does feel like we've kind of, the people have lost control of Bitcoin.
Right.
And so I don't know what the solution is, but I'm hopeful. You know, I think it's an idea that can't be killed. I think we've solved too much of it to go back. Like, I think we'll figure it out. Yeah.
I agree, and I would say, I guess, as far as possibilities of what happens, you know, the 20,000 node operators or whatever, we could say like we lost, too bad, but you know, it's a consensus thing. We'll just have to go along with what the majority wanted. That's an option. Another one would be, I guess, keep working within the system, you know, to get those changes pushed through eventually. And then kind of the nuclear option would be like, screw it, you know, we have no influence here anymore. We don't believe in the vision. We can create a new cryptocurrency essentially with the same history as Bitcoin, but going forward, it will have a totally different transaction history and code base.
Yeah.
And it would mean that Bitcoin exists, and now there's going to be a new currency, which, again, the name is being even debated right now. I think Bitmoney was an option, so let's just say it's called Bitmoney. So going forward, there will be Bitcoin and now Bitmoney with this history, which is really sad to me, because it's just a split. You know, it's a schism, but I think the separation is between kind of regular people who have this vision, which I would really want to talk about this now. The reason for Bitcoin existing, like why does Bitcoin exist? Do you want to give your perspective on that? Like, why was Bitcoin created in the first place?
Yeah, I think like, so in the original version of Bitcoin in the white paper, it's like one individual was a miner and a node and a transactor. And it's like, if you think about it in that way, it's like, man, if we all had nodes on our now way more powerful phones, and we were all mining a little bit, and, you know, and transacting, and everyone's doing the private keys properly, and the network's distributed, like, ideally it works out beautifully. So I feel like, you know, there's every opportunity to take things, and not exactly like that, but some sense of recapturing what Bitcoin was. And I think, you know, potentially a hard fork, a change of the proof of work or whatever, the nuclear option, as they say, like, it may be the only way. Like, I'm not afraid, because I've already, like, no matter what, I see clearly what I've seen. So it's like, and I think a lot of people feel the same way. They just know better, that it's like, well, I know I don't want that thing, you know? So if there's a chance that we can do something different, that sounds pretty good. And honestly, the people that are, you know, way too much about number go up and how much they're going to retire for and how many do you need to retire, like, I'm like, good riddance. Like, keep focusing on that.
Right.
They'll probably just lose our chain, because it'll be seen as, this thing could be like it could be the next Trojan horse, right? The Bitcoin within Bitcoin.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ways it could play out, and I'm going to keep rooting for that. And yeah, I don't know.
I would say my understanding of, you know, Bitcoin, why it exists, is there's actually a lot of reasons, which I think are all really profound. One of them is as an inflation protection, and it was created, as far as we can tell, partially in response to the 2008, 2009 bailouts, where, you know, the government's just printed money to bail out the banks. Bitcoin has a hard limit. There can never be any more than 21 million Bitcoins.
Yeah.
So that's a big motivator. The other one is it's supposed to be an uncensorable peer-to-peer digital currency, electronic cash,
Yeah.
that nobody can ever stop. And I would say that's where Bitcoin is failing massively right now, because I can't spend Bitcoin. You know, if I go to a store, a gas station, I can't spend Bitcoin.
Right.
I can buy Bitcoin and hold it and see if the you know, the dollar value goes up or down, which is great. I think it has worked in some ways as an inflation hedge, but it is almost unusable as a peer-to-peer currency today.
Yeah.
So this is something you and I have talked a lot about. I guess the difference between like a hoarding mindset and a spending mindset. And myself, like I mostly just buy Bitcoin and hold it historically.
Right.
You made a great argument that the spending is actually where the security would come from. If you can spend the Bitcoin. Do you want to talk about that a little bit and why?
Yeah, I mean, and that's a pretty simple thought. I think it's just like if there were less honeypots, I think Bitcoin at its best is like thousands of sats. And that's my nomination for the new name is we just call it sats and we stop worrying about, entire Bitcoin and
Yeah.
collect Satoshis.
So Satoshi is 100 million Satoshis makes one Bitcoin.
Right. Yeah. And in this world, I think we would stop making that translation and we would just call them sats. But I got off track. What was the original question?
This is an inflection point where say the 20% of BIP 110 supporters do create a new coin. This could be a coin that's designed for actually spending instead of a speculative investment.
Yeah, that would be ideal.
And can you talk about like where does true security come from? Where does true material
security? Right.
How is material security derived in Bitcoin?
Well, yeah, okay, sorry, that's what we were talking about. So I think that everyone there's sometimes there's like a lot of black and white attitudes about security in Bitcoin. Like it's like don't even onboard anybody unless they understand how to hold their own keys and you got them engraved in steel and buried in and I think it's more like a deep thing to uncover. And I think that if a lot of people had less sats, there wouldn't be like these big gapings. It's like how like someone doesn't walk around with millions of dollars in a suitcase. That's just not smart, right? Like you'd have someone deliver. You might have a security team. Maybe people do. But in general, like that would be, or Michael Saylor, he's not going to hold his own keys because then it's like that's on him. Someone could come to his house, put a gun to his head, wrench attack, whatever. And so I think Bitcoin being used, by more people mining, decentralized like that would be the best security because there's less central points of failure. Like, so whether we're talking about security of someone stealing your coins, which now we know like hardware wallets, it's like you don't need one. Like, and you're adding another layer of trust there, whether you want to admit it or not.
Yeah.
So I think Bitcoin, like in its simplest form, is its best. Let's just spend sats and not worry about the dollar value.
Yeah.
I don't know how we get there though.
I think the part to me is like the average person, they're going to say, so what? Like, why would I want to pay for things with Bitcoin instead of dollars?
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that, or I can give my take on it?
Well, I mean, that's a lot to unfold. I mean, that's a lot what we're wanting to share, right, with our meetup group. It's called a Freedom Tech group, specifically because we want to show where these things get tied together. And incentives can be anywhere from like, hey, I charge a little bit less for Bitcoin because I believe in it long term. And that's a win-win for someone who's collecting or making a purchase. Like, oh, I spent less than I would have. And now I have and it incentivizes like trading within our own groups. But I don't know. Like there has to be this fundamental shift, like to go from like me versus you. I need to hoard for later. I'm going to lose. It's like, because a lot of Bitcoin is still very fiat minded. And so making that leap, it's really difficult because it's not a consumeristic one. It's more like people that feel abundant with Bitcoin are more likely to live simply and start making better decisions because suddenly like their energy matters. It goes both ways. It's like you can store energy over time, which is like, ooh, maybe I don't want to just be buying stuff on Amazon every day. Like maybe I want to save some of this. But at the same time, I think moving that energy forward and exchanging it is crucial for, Bitcoin to be what we wanted it to be. And all that stuff, a stock market, anything, it's just like that's all built in the fiat world. Like none of that's made. I think Bitcoin being its pure, just basic accounting thing that we can all share is already such a gift. And let's not add anything to that. I don't know.
I think that this has to be part of a bigger shift, and it has to happen in our groups and communities, like you mentioned. The shift that Bitcoin to me enables is that any one of us can become a merchant. because there's no red tape. Like
Yeah.
I could host a restaurant here 3 nights a week and accept money digitally with basically no paper trail. Like
Yeah.
right now you'd have to go through all the regulation and everything to get a restaurant set up, which is going to cost you a lot. And, you know, all the taxes and the money tracking and everything, when I can go over to my neighbor's house and they can make me a beautiful meal that's going to be more meaningful
Yeah.
than going to some restaurant or something. And the money specifically is the hurdle to why that can't happen. Because if you're going to your neighbor's house, you're either paying them digitally, which again, there's a paper trail there, and somebody one day could say, you know, what's all this? Did you pay taxes on that?
Yeah.
Or you're paying in cash, which I can send. There's plenty of articles like you can't really spend cash. You know, over a certain amount, people are going to start asking questions. Where did all this money come from?
Yeah.
So Bitcoin was created again to be an uncensorable peer-to-peer digital currency. So I can come over to your house and pay you in Bitcoin, and that's a transaction that the underlying technology is so powerful. If it's distributed the right way and the technology is being run the right way, it's so powerful that a government can't shut it down. So it enables peer-to-peer transactions and interactions and commerce in a way that just isn't possible with existing with the dollar.
Yeah, it's powerful stuff, and I think what you were saying, the inflation hedge, like that, I think happens inherently with it being decentralized. Like the value of it, to me, is the network. It's an
Yes.
automatic social fabric. Once you integrate it with Nostr, you have the messaging aspect, you have receipts, you have everything you need, like with those two tools, and that creates the value. So whether we want to compare it to dollars or not, it will become more valuable the more it's being spent, you know? And so it's kind of hard
Right.
to think about what that means and how to price it and how to get out of the, you know, way of comparing it to
I
dollars.
mean, it means we can rely on each other more than companies.
Yeah. And okay, so this is another little, you know, thought of mine. We've talked about this a little bit, and some people probably won't like this because everyone should trust, don't verify, right? But I think in a small community, like I can imagine within our community, you and I do some work to collect some hardware, people donate some hardware, we go to Goodwill or whatever, and we put together some nodes and we administrate, you know, we keep them like, okay, these are running, it's plugged into your thing, set wallets up for people that they have the keys for, and like, hey, this is how you in. So if we put the infrastructure in and just say, hey, and it's like literally it could be, it's no different than like credits. It doesn't matter if it's like, hey, let's just exchange these and just keep it just within the farmers markets and for goods and service in Cochise County. Here's how we're going to peg it to the cost of an apple, whatever. I don't know. Somehow there's something pegged within that little community. And I feel like that little community could function, maybe not 100%. We're still going to gas stations. We're still paying taxes and we're still earning some fiat. But slowly, I think within those communities, that's how you like foster the real change. And yeah, that's why I was excited to meet you and to get, you know, I'm pretty fired up for this group because in this area, people are they're willing to do a little extra work to be freedom focused. Yeah.
I think the people out here, we live DIY, do it yourself.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm checking my house for leaks every time it rains, you know, like things go wrong. It's a process. And that's kind of how it is with Bitcoin and Nostr. It's being built, and another big shift is kind of getting away from a more passive mindset where just this thing is here for me when I need it, and it's a more active thing. Like I'm running a node, you know, we have to be more active in the tools that we use every day, and Bitcoin is a tool that should be a homegrown technology that's just worked on by regular people and not these, you know, these big groups that are out there.
Yeah, and for it to be the tool we want it to be, we're going to have to take responsibility, and some of us will need to help our neighbors and stuff. I don't think everything is 100% verified because it's a steep learning curve, and like we want everyone to be involved ideally. And I think communities can find trusted people, just like there has to be stewards of Bitcoin. It's like you could argue that it's like stupid to follow Luke, but it's like, is it any stupider to follow the one person who has the keys to core? I don't know who that is now. I've heard about Glory, you know, like it's still trusting somebody. Yeah. And so we have to navigate on our own at the end of the day. And this whole thing for me has been navigated by my gut. I'm not technical enough to explain everything necessarily, but yeah, yeah, I want to keep pushing that way. And it seems, like doing it local, I would love to see more of that. Like, because Noster
Yeah.
has everything we need. We're getting so close. White noise is really good. It's
Yeah.
getting really close. It's exciting times.
Yeah, we should talk about Nostr. I guess last thing I wanted to say was the common saying in Bitcoin is separating money from state.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what this does, because Bitcoin is not regulated or controlled by the government. And again, it allows us to freely transact with each other in a way that's not possible. I mean, we could create our own currency for Cochise County, but Bitcoin is on the internet. So it kind of creates a global, like local community economy, because if we're
Yeah.
trading apples at a farmer's market, I can also transact with somebody on the other side of the world digitally with the same currency. And it's all running on open source technology that's operating outside. It should be operating outside the control of any,
Yeah.
big institution.
Yeah, and it's difficult to get out of the mindset that like the Bitcoin would be the one that you're trading for dollars, that Michael Saylor acknowledges, the one that has been the Bitcoin. But like, I think it could look a lot of ways. I think we can get back a decentralized currency that's made for peer-to-peer exchange, but I don't know how it'll look.
Yeah.
You
It's
know,
it's anybody's guess right now.
yeah,
I'll
no
give
one
my
knows.
I'll give
Yeah.
my prediction, which again, who knows? I think that there will be a split. There will be a new coin with these supporters, and everyone's going to be laughing at them at first. I think there will be a lot of software and hardware attacks on them. If there's not a lot of mining power behind it at first, it will be vulnerable to a mining attack, and that could happen. There could be bugs in the software. It's like that's why it's bad to split. You want the best developers, you want the most eyes on the software. So, but the people behind this thing are going to be extremely dedicated. And to me, it's like a focusing kind of a moment. It's focusing people. We share a lot in common. It's that core goal of peer-to-peer currency versus just I'm going to make a lot of money off of this one day.
Yeah.
So I see that and the philosophy and the behavior change, that all has to happen for Bitcoin to actually become useful. And the community that I think will build behind this movement will actually create that reality. And one day eventually, I think if it can happen again if we work towards it. If we are actually transacting with it and we're having more person-to-person economic transactions every day, then that will actually make it valuable. In a way that this other coin that's just going to be on some ETF balance sheet somewhere, it will be totally different.
Yeah, I mean, I like that idea, and I don't know what it looks like. I don't know, what would change in the proof of work or,
Right.
yeah, I don't know the details, but I'm gonna hold, I'm gonna keep some faith and maybe just, it's always a good practice for me to focus on what's right in front of me anyways and not get too wrapped up in
Yeah.
that world. As much as I feel like it's so important, just for my mental health, it's like sometimes I can get so wrapped up in it.
Yeah.
And
The cool thing about it is right now there's a small number of people working on this relatively to how many it could impact, I think. But it is decentralized. People can come and jump in and jump out whenever they want to, and kind of it keeps going just because the incentives are designed that way.
yeah, and it seems, I don't know how the difficulty is going to go or whatever, but it's interesting. There's still some people mining on it or whatever, and nodes running it, so it still exists.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what will come of that? No idea.
Nobody knows. So we'll have to see. It's going to be playing out over the next several weeks.
Yeah.
And then, months and years after that, I think. I'm personally excited by the possibilities this opens. I think this is kind of a David and Goliath kind of a story, and people can get behind an underdog, and it could really connect more people with this new coin in a way that they weren't with Bitcoin, and see the value in it, and be attracted to that. And I think this event could cause that, but who knows?
Yeah, I'm hopeful because, and this is not so much logical as far as just, what am I trying to say? I feel like I've put a lot of heart and soul into this path for a long time, and I'm still very hopeful it'll work out some way. And I'm always trying to trust that sometimes things don't go the way I want. It's like that song, you can't always get what you want, but you get what you need. Like, this may be what we need right now. And I just am going to be down with that, because being fear driven or like, oh no, Bitcoin's destroyed or whatever, that's not going to help.
Yeah.
And I'm not, I didn't have too much to hurt in the way of my ego because I always kind of knew I might be wrong. It was just like, I'm going to root for this team,
Right.
but we're the underdogs.
Yeah.
I knew that, but I'm not going to act like that while it's going down, So yeah, I think it's super exciting. And for us, the timing is just, it feels perfect. We already knew that we wanted our thing to be pretty Noster focused anyways. And I think it'll be, if we even get a few people interested in that world, it's like we can discover together,
Yeah.
And figure out who's willing to maybe run a machine to mine and run nodes, and maybe it'll become something, maybe we can come up with something that's more for the people.
Right. Like I would be more willing to put time into that if it actually meant something. Like I'm running a node now for Bitcoin, but it's like I could just connect to, some other.
Yeah, and it's like if we got 20 people involved here, and some of them have some electricity they want to burn, and there's a new mining. I don't know what that's going to look like, but I'm just saying it could change a lot. And
if people actually see a reason to get involved, it is a community-owned thing, and now we have an actual stake in it, and so it's totally different mindset for me at least.
I hear a lot of people when I talk about this, they say, well, why don't you just go use Monero? And I don't know, maybe you have idea. I don't know what it is that makes Monero undesirable to me. I think because Lightning feels like it has big potential, and I see Noster happening on Bitcoin. Like I've always been focused that way, but when I learned that you could mine Monero on a laptop, I'm like, well, that's cool. So that feels like potential to be more decentralized. But I've also heard there's a tail inflate, like there's a little more supply. And I'm kind of putting it out there because like when people that listen to this, like some of them will be able to tell me why not Monero.
Yeah.
Some people will tell me why it's good, because I'm curious. I feel like this could go a lot of ways.
Which Monero is another cryptocurrency, privacy focused.
And generally, I don't consider crypto, but there's a lot of people that consider Monero in the Bitcoin space as a serious project. And
yeah.
I don't know what to make of it.
Yeah. Again, everything's kind of up in the air at this point. So
yeah,
we will see. Let's talk about Noster and this meetup that's coming up, which I'm really excited about. And again, the timing just with everything happening.
Yeah.
Maybe let's just talk about what is Noster, because almost nobody watching will know. I think.
Noster is really fun to talk about because it doesn't have the money aspect to it, but it's so similar in the sense that it gives us the ability to take back control from centralized servers. Essentially, it's like taking those computers that have our data and deciding where we want those to be located on people's other individuals' machines, actually sometimes paying for that and having an exchange there. And all the while, that your information's going to be available, or you can trust that there's not a central, it's not going to be censored, and you get what you ask for. So you're getting away from algorithms. It's a big topic. And I think it's one of the most exciting elements of this whole world because it's like the social fabric, it's taking, I think the coolest thing to sum up Noster is like you get one login that's like a secret key that you get to plug into any app you could want. So anything that we do online right now, whether it's cloud storage, a notes app, a calendar, Instagram, Twitter, anything where there's like information being transferred, from one person to another, people are building Noster versions of it. But you get to have one key. You're not ever stuck in any one environment. You're never subject to someone. I mean, maybe some of the apps might silence people. I don't know. But there's a lot of options. So if you're getting silenced somewhere, you take your same identity, go somewhere else. It's not like the traditional where I lost my Twitter account, now I have no followers. It's like that would never happen in Noster. You literally just like take and start up another one. So yeah, I think it's super powerful, and I think what we want to do is kind of bring that world, our digital world, this decentralized digital world, and start to integrate it with the local world where people are also, freedom-minded and wanting to exchange, wanting to be able to do cross-border stuff. Noster kind of feels like the fabric, to work on the social layer of all this stuff, sharing stuff, like free information again. And then I think like micro payments and people getting paid for their services, instead of having a few patrons, like have like lots of people that support in little bits or, whatever you're doing. You could be hosting files. You could be doing a little hashing. You could be sharing content that people find interesting, and there's not someone in the middle to decide who sees what. We've all like seen probably on the algorithms where it's like, hey, why didn't nobody saw that?
Yeah.
And yet this one, like, what? I don't get it. Something's weird. It's just like the more that stuff evolves, the more gamified it becomes, the more sickening it becomes, the more addictive it becomes. And I've used it all, so I can't judge. But I'm trying to. Nostr feels like a cleaner headspace. It feels like there's cleaner signal there. It's a lot of people that are walking the walk because there's not a lot of people there.
Right.
So you're an early adopter. If you're coming to check out Nostr, but I would say there's a lot of advantages to like that. If you're starting to have a name on Nostr, you're in a small pond, and there's a potential as people experience enough pain in the old ways, whether through their dollars or through their social platforms, or like suddenly iCloud is like $2,000 a month, or who knows what could happen. But there's no reason why that stuff couldn't exist on our own devices. We could put so many used devices as work as relays. Like it would actually like help waste. More people running relays and nodes and make us becoming the networks
Right.
that we rely on.
Yeah.
And I think until people see that there's a problem, until they have enough pain, they won't choose into it. So it's going to take time. But I think that, it's pretty cool that there's so much happening already.
Yeah.
The apps are getting pretty good. There's messaging apps. We're working testing some of those out. There's a lot of good stuff coming.
Right. It is really cool how you just have one login for all these different apps and communication types. And that login is just a pair of cryptographic keys. So your identity is never sitting in a database somewhere. It's all math. A lot of the ideas were, I guess, probably borrowed from Bitcoin, but you never have an email signed up with any of these services. They don't know your real identity. To them, you're just you're a public key and a private key.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's almost surprising Nostr didn't come along earlier, because I feel like, that type of end-to-end encryption stuff's been around a long time. But I don't know what the hurdles were in figuring that out with the relay system and everything.
Right. The relays, that's the other component of Nostr that's different, is that when you post to Instagram or Facebook, it's all going to Instagram or Facebook servers, a centralized server, these big mass systems again. Nostr, you post to what's called a relay, which I just set one up yesterday. Mm-hmm. It's just a simple relay that relays your message to your followers. And it's simple enough that you can set one up. It's all open source software, and when you post on Nostr, you configure what relays you post to. So like I post to 4 or 5, and if one goes down or you're getting censored on one, then your message will still get through. And if you're getting censored everywhere, you can start your own and still communicate.
Yeah, and I don't think we can underestimate how powerful that is. Like, it's a lot like it's like a network that has no central point of failure, because if you and our friends are connecting to relays locally, literally, like, something could happen, we get disconnected from the outside world, and we're still connected, we're still backing up our own messages, whatever that, it's like, it's just like taking care of your own information. We could run our own media servers, and that could be a service between friends. That's a really exciting aspect of Nostr, is the relays.
Yeah, all these technologies have the potential to be community owned, which I think is really powerful. And so we need more tech people out here in Cochise County. If you're a Bitcoiner listening to this, I'll give a plug for Cochise County. I guess not many people know it. It is a unique place because we have this opt-out law, which lets you opt out of any building inspections. So you can basically build your own house with however you want to. And we're sitting here in a super Adobe dome house. And so it attracts a lot of DIY people willing to take a risk and work really hard for their dreams and their visions. And I think there's a lot of philosophical overlap between people interested in Bitcoin and people who come out here. It's a very independent way of thinking, and that we're going to build our own future. We're trying to get off of these big mass systems that are not serving us. So that's why I see huge potential here at this meetup. We're hoping to get some of our neighbors out here in Cochise County set up on Nostr and see what happens.
Yeah, I think that would be really powerful, and I'm excited, and hopefully a couple of people, maybe some people are going to show up, end up watching this ahead of time. And I would encourage you, I think it would be helpful to us if you start looking into this stuff ahead of time, like install a Nostr app, literally you can just go to your app store and type in Noster. There's going to be a few different options, and it'll make a key for you right away. And there's like a lot of layers to it. There's not that much to stay at stake first. It's like you can just make a key and start looking around and following stuff and understanding how it works. And then it's like we're going to have the opportunity to learn about backing up keys. And it's like we really want to spread information for people that are new to it and help people get started with the tools. But the biggest thing is like curiosity. And that's why I think, this is an important. It feels like there's an empty space here in Cochise because people are so willing and I think probably open to try some things. And it's really exciting. This stuff's happening kind of fast, but it feels like a highlight in my, stuff I got coming up. So,
yeah, I'm really excited.
It'll be fun.
Yeah.
And if there's anyone in Tucson that's kind of technical and wants to come be part of it and help us, that would be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I told you this could become the Silicon Valley for Freedom Tech.
That's right.
At least in the United States, Cochise
You
County.
can come, seriously, you buy land and you can build what you want to build, people. Like it's a pretty profound thing. Like you don't have to have a cookie cutter house. There's like a million options you could build with materials, on your own property. It's pretty special. Breathtaking views. Highly recommended.
Yeah, it's not easy at all, but
yeah.
It's been an absolutely transformative experience for me building this house, and like you can't build a house without learning, and I'm trying to live out my vision, for a better life, and I'm becoming more of the person that I think I could be or I want to be throughout this process. So it is a lot of hard work. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but at the same time, there's my vision for out here is there's so many skilled people out here, If you're a Bitcoiner watching or listening, like there's people here who can help. And again, that's a big part of this economy. I was able to pay a lot of friends to help me build this house, which it was that style of transaction really is I think the shift that I want to make, because my friends, those people really cared, and you get something qualitatively different than you could if you're going to just some big business somewhere.
Yeah.
Which has been really cool.
And ideally, the more we get into this ideal world of trading value for value, like the incentives would be to really take care of each other and offer quality work, because we would be getting out of that, like, we must produce, we must grow, my house needs to be worth more every year, all these fiat illusions that we're kind of used to. I think like the quality of crafts and, we're going to circle back around. It's just, interesting times.
It is funny because we're evolving back to like how humans used to be,
Ideally, yeah. I mean, I like that idea.
But it's different because now we are connected digitally, globally. So that's really where, again, I see Bitcoin being a big part of that, because it can connect all these local communities, and which the community aspect of life is just really missing in a big way. But that's very present, way more present here in Cochise County than I've experienced anywhere else.
I feel that, and I think there's something to like wanting to work hard and being willing to kind of live on the fringes, and I don't know, it's a very family oriented vibe out here, like and it doesn't have it to do anything with anybody's like politics or anything. It's just like, hey, I just want to have mutual respect for my neighbors. Like, is that so hard? Like, and do we need to have a bunch of people telling us how to live? Like, I don't think so.
Right.
I think we can self-regulate more than we give ourselves credit for. And I don't know what's going to happen in big cities and stuff, right? That stuff's all set up that way. But I'm going to be down here because to me that seems like a good place to be as this stuff unfolds.
Yeah. I'm really happy living here, and I just see so much potential. But again, it's not going to happen if I don't put the work in, and I'm glad that we're doing this together. It's like nothing's stopping us, but we have to build this thing that we want, and
we don't need anyone's permission.
We don't need permission.
We just got to start doing it.
We just have to do it.
And I think that's something for us all to remember. Like, it's kind of cliche, but we have to be the change. It's like at some point we have to pick up the tools and figure it out. And I trust it'll figure it, we'll work it out. Yeah,
I agree.
Exciting.
It's good. It's an exciting journey. It's a beautiful journey. So, well, David, thanks so much for being here and having this conversation. I guess this meetup that we're having is happening August 25th. It's at 6 p.m. Elfrida, Arizona.
Arizona time. None of that.
Arizona
none
time.
of that.
We don't do
daylight savings
We
time
don't do
stuff.
daylight savings time here.
We're rebels here. Yeah. 6 p.m.
I'm buying tacos for everybody from the
Yeah.
Country Cafe, so make
Yeah,
sure
food.
you RSVP. It's freedomtech.rsvpfi.com.
And it'll probably be a lot of openings for people to talk with us and ask questions, because I want to hear from people what they feel like they are wanting to understand, and yeah, it should be fun, and there's gonna be food, so why
There's
not
food.
come?
There's food.
Like, you should just come.
Yeah, tacos.
Yeah.
We'll have tacos together.
Yeah, we'll have fun hanging out. Exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited, and like I said, there's just huge potential. And on a personal note, it's funny for me because I have always been a tech person. I've always been interested in technology. I went to college for that, and I really gave that up for a long time. And moving out here, I just wanted to kind of build off grid, and for this to come back around in a way where now I am getting back involved with technology, but it's fitting into a lot of other things that I also believe in has been really cool for me to see that unfold. So it's also gratifying,
Yeah, it's funny. Same for me. I've been into tech, but like my lens and how I use tech, like now I'm really focused on having tech be a tool for me, not me be a tool for the tech. Because I've done both. I've been very integrated with the ecosystems and algorithms, and very dependent on things delivered all day to my, all that stuff. I was super tightly integrated, and now it's like, how can the tech work for me? Make my life better, not take from me, not give to algorithms, and monthly fees that I'm never going to get out from under because I don't want to lose my pictures or whatever. There's all these cool options, and I've always liked doing nerdy stuff. It's like, it's fun playing with the Raspberry Pi and seeing what you can do. And I think more people will come into that world, and then the ones that do come in will help others out, and it'll be fun.
Yeah, freedom.
Take the power back.
Freedom Tech.
The digital stuff, we can hold on to it.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Cool. Well, this has been a great conversation. Any final words or thoughts?
I propose we call it SATs. We just go by Satoshis, and stack skills, because if you have skills, it doesn't matter what happens. You'll be good to go. People will want to help you out. And I really appreciate you chatting with me here, and I'm excited for the stuff we got coming. So if you're in the area or you know someone, invite them out.
Yeah. Stack skills and spend sats.
Yeah, very much so.
Well, thanks everyone for watching or listening, and I'll be talking to you later.